Hello students. So I'm back here with the fourth session of IOQP series. So let's see what we have in store today. So first of all, I'll tell you the flow of the session, what we are going to cover in today's session. So I'll start with mentioning the student's name who responded well for teasers of session 2. Now there is something very important to understand here that immediately after recording session 2, within 2 to 3 days I had to record session 3 because I was going on a leave. This meant that before I could get response from students for session 2, I had to record session 3, and hence you did not find any mention of student in session 3. So in today's session I'll be talking about students who responded to the teaser of session 2. I'll be talking about the students who responded to the teaser of session 3. We'll talk about the solution of teaser for that I gave in the previous session, that was session 3. Then I'm going to show you the question that we are going to cover in today's session. And finally, I'll be discussing that question along with the theory that is needed to address that question. And then I'll give you the teaser for today's session. So this is going to be the flow of today's session. So let's start with mentioning the name of the students who answered teaser of session 2 appropriately. So Tushar answered both the teasers correctly. In session 2, I gave two teasers along with a question that the falling end of a chain, we consider it to be falling at an acceleration of g. So how can we justify that? So Tushar gave both the answers correct along with this question, and Kritant gave the best solution for teaser 1. Like Kritant responded to one of the teaser, but his response was very good. He gave solution to one teaser, and that was a brilliant solution. And other noteworthy mentions were Shikhar Patak and Tanishq. So very well done, students. With this, I'll start discussing the teaser of the last session. So this is the teaser of the last session. I'm pretty sure that some of you may have tried this. So these are the answers to the teaser of previous question. Answers to the teaser of previous session, and now I will solve this question. So let me just recall that what we discussed in the previous session was something like this: that let's say we have a wheel, and this wheel is undergoing pure rolling on a horizontal surface, and let's say if it's undergoing pure rolling, then the peripheral points, okay, they have two kinds of velocities. In fact, all the points will have two kinds of velocities, one because of the motion of the center of mass and the other because of the rotation. So if I choose any peripheral point, then this peripheral point undergoes a trajectory somewhat like this, moves on a trajectory somewhat like this, and we call this trajectory as a cycloid. Okay. Now, instead of talking about the peripheral point, let's say if I choose to talk about a point which is somewhere here. So for such a point, the speed or the velocity due to the rotation will be less than omega r, as the distance from center will be smaller than r. Okay, so it will have a lesser rotational velocity. The velocity of center of mass will be present with all the points of this rigid body. The consequence would be that this particle will move in a trajectory which is confined between these two lines, and which looks somewhat like this, somewhat like this. Okay, so this would be, we discussed this trajectory in our previous session. Okay, and then let's say if we attach some kind of boundary, or we let's say if we attach some kind of extra boundary to this disk, such that still this is the surface, this is the periphery which is undergoing pure rolling. Okay, then consider a point on the added boundary, on this extra boundary. This point will stay within these two lines. Okay, this point will stay within these two lines, and for this point the rotational velocity will become more because the distance r has become more. So it will have larger rotational speed, which means that When such a point comes to the bottommost point, it will have a larger backward velocity and smaller forward velocity. So overall velocity would be backwards. So for such a point, the trajectory would be somewhat like this. Okay, the trajectory would be somewhat like this for such a point. Okay, so all these curves, these points, wherever the cycloid was touching the ground, okay, these will be the point where the such points will occur of the trajectory. Okay, so basically this distance, we know that this distance will be equal to 2 pi r. And what does r represent here? R represents the velocity of center, the velocity of center of the wheel divided by omega. Okay, now with this knowledge in mind, let's come to the present question. So the question, this particular question, so it says that there are two small disks A and B of masses m1 and m2, and they are connected by a light thread of length L and placed on a horizontal surface, disk A. So basically, disk A is held at rest and disk B is projected to move around disk A with a constant speed u. So B would be going around A with a speed u, which means that A is at rest and B is moving in a circle like this. Okay, B is moving in a circle like this with a speed u, which also means that this thread is rotating with an angular velocity of u by L. Now, if at any instant we suddenly let go of point A or mass A, then what will happen? Then at this instant, whatever was the velocity of center of mass, the center of mass of this two particle system will continue to move with that particular constant velocity, and these two particles will go about in circular motion when seen from center of mass frame. So basically, if we consider to be sitting at the center of mass frame, then we will see that B is going in a circle and A is going on a circle, and the radii of the circle will depend upon the masses. Okay, if the particles will be of equal mass, then the circles will overlap. So as seen from center of mass, the two particles would be moving like this. Okay, like this. So one particle moves from this point to this point, the other particle goes from this to this point. Okay, and the center of mass would be traveling in a straight line. So this would be the scenario here. Okay, now we have been told that the disk B moves on a path shown like this. So what do I understand from this statement? I understand that B is following a trajectory somewhat like this. Okay, B is following a trajectory somewhat like this. So in this group of A and B, okay, if B is following a trajectory somewhat like this, then it means that the center of mass is farther from B. Like, if we consider the case when the center of mass would have been midway, that would have happened when mass of A would have been equal to the mass of B. In that case, in that scenario, the center of mass would be midway between A and B, and A as well as B. In that case, they this center would have moved with a speed of u by 2. Okay, the angular velocity would have been u by L. Okay, so this linear speed, like the omega r, okay, this omega r would have been equal to u by L into L by 2, which is u by 2, which would have meant that A and B both would have followed the cycloidal trajectory, this one, this red one, this red trajectory. But this would have been the case when the particles would have been of equal mass. Presently, the particles are of unequal mass, so the center of mass will shift nearer to one of the particles. Okay, uh, whichever particle is close to center of mass, that means whichever particle is a heavier particle, for that particle r will reduce, this r will reduce, which means that the heavier particle will undergo a trajectory like this, and the lighter particle will undergo a trajectory, this one, the purple one. Okay, so this will be the trajectory followed by the lighter particle, and this would have been the trajectory followed by the heavier particle. Okay, in present case, we have been told that this is the trajectory of B. This means that B is the lighter particle. So from here we can conclusively say that A is the heavier particle and B is the lighter particle. Okay, So we can conclusively say that. Apart from this, we want to calculate the length p. Here I declare that length p will be equal to 2 pi r, but the question is what is r here? So r would be v center by omega. Okay, so v here, the center will be replaced by center of mass. So the velocity of center of mass will be given by what? So it would be given by speed of b at the time of release into the mass of B divided by the total mass. Remember, the velocity of A at the time of release was 0. Okay, so the velocity of B into mass of B divided by total mass, that's velocity of center of mass, and then 1 upon omega. Now, how much was omega? Omega was U by L at the time of release. So I will write it as L by U. So U gets cancelled and we are left with M2 into L upon M1 plus M2. So this is the value of R. This means that the value of P would be equal to 2 pi into M2L upon M1 plus M2. So this would be the value of P. Let me just go back and check the answer. So we can see that the value of P matches. Okay, now we have to find the value of Q. Now this is interesting. This part is really interesting, so you have to pay attention. Q refers to this distance, like the maximum distance here. So at this point and this point, understand this, that the velocity of B would be in vertical direction. Like if I draw tangents to the path of point B, then these tangents are coming vertical. Okay, this means that when the B is at this position, then B does not possess any horizontal component of velocity. Okay, so this is a very important idea to keep in mind. Along with this idea, let's see what is happening. So in center of mass frame, B is going in a circle. So let's say if this is the center of mass frame, then B is going in a circle. Let me call the radius of the circle as RB. And we know that we can write RB as mass of A into L divided by M1 plus M2. So B particle is going in a circle like this. So B particle possesses two kinds of velocity. One velocity is the because of the rotation. Okay, so one is this velocity and the other velocity is the linear velocity, which is equal to the velocity of center of mass. Okay, so now consider this. Point B possesses two kinds of velocity. Okay, now if I ask you that at which point there is a possibility of having a vertical velocity, like the horizontal component of velocity of B getting disappeared, I'm pretty sure that you are going to say, or you are thinking about let's say this point maybe, and at the same height this point maybe. So basically what will happen at such positions, B has two components of velocity. One is VCM, which we know is equal to M2 into U upon M1 plus M2, and the other velocity in this direction, which is equals to omega into RB. Okay, now if I consider this angle as theta, okay, then omega RB cos theta must be equal to VCM, so that the horizontal components of velocity get cancelled and we are left with only the vertical velocity. So keeping this in mind, I can say that cos theta would be equal to VCM by omega RB. Now we just have to put the values here. So VCM would be M2U upon M1 plus M2. Okay, omega would be 1 upon omega, that is would be L by U, and 1 upon RB would be M1 into L, and then M1 plus M2. So there's a little space here, so I'll just cancel the things that are getting cancelled, and we are left with M2 by M1. So we know the value of cos theta, which also means that I can write theta as cos inverse of M2 by M1. All right, so we have obtained this theta now. Now understand this, that this length Q is what? This length Q is the displacement of point B in ground frame. Displacement of point B in ground frame in the duration in which we expect B to undergo rotational motion like this, like circular motion like this. Okay, so my point here is that we assume this angle as theta. So this would mean that this angle is theta, this angle is theta. So by the time a rotation of 2 theta happens, this is the time in which this displacement must have taken place. So the time that we are looking to calculate would be 2 theta by omega. Okay, so this is the time. So what I'm trying to suggest now is that displacement of point B in the ground frame in this duration is what we seek. Actually, the mod of this is what we seek. Okay, and I can write this as displacement of B in the center of mass frame plus the displacement of center of mass in the ground frame. Okay, now understand this. Displacement of B in the center of mass frame, that is in which direction? Like this is in this direction, and in this period only the displacement of center of mass in the ground frame would be in this direction. So these two lengths we have to calculate, and we have to take the difference of these two lengths because the directions are opposite. So displacement of B in the center of mass frame is this length, and this length is RB. So I would write this as 2 into RB into sine theta. Okay, 2 RB sine theta, and then this length would be what? This length would be VCM into T, and I have to take the difference of this, and then I will take the mod of this. Okay, though I know that this length has to be larger, this length has to be larger for Q length to appear. Okay, so we are going to do this calculation. And let me use the next page to finish the calculation. So 2 into RB would be equal to M1L upon M1 plus M2. So this is 2 into RB. Then sine theta, that's root of 1 minus cos square theta, and we obtained the value of cos theta here. So this would become equal to M2 by M1 square, right? M2 by M1 square. I hope you're liking the question, guys. I hope you are enjoying this question. So minus BCM into T. Now, how much was BCM? That was U into M2 upon M1 plus M2. So this was the value of VCM into T. T was 2 times of theta. Theta was cos inverse of, what was it? M2 by M1. Cos inverse of M2 by M1 divided by omega. Omega was U by L. So I guess when we simplify this, we should be ready with the answers. Let's do that. Let me take this M1 within the square root, so that we are now looking at 2L upon M1 plus M2 root of M1 square minus M2 square minus what do I have here? U gets cancelled, and anything else? No, nothing else is getting cancelled. So 2L upon M1 plus M2 into cos inverse of M2 by M1. Now I can pull out 2L upon M1 plus M2 as the common quantity, and then we have root of M1 square minus M2 square minus cos inverse. I think I've missed nothing. Cos inverse of M2 by M1. So this is our final answer. This is the value of Q that we are looking for. Let's just go back and check whether we have got the correct answer or not. I think we have got the correct. I think some M2 is probably missing from somewhere. Yeah, this I missed this M2. So let me just write it. Yeah, now we've got the correct answer. So this would be the answer or the solution to the teaser that I shared. I hope you liked the solution, guys. And now coming to the noteworthy mentions for this particular teaser. Well, I'm surprised, and at the same time I'm a little bit sad also that I could not find any suitable correct answers for this particular teaser. Maybe you guys found this teaser a bit difficult. Maybe you chose not to respond though you solved the question. Whatever may be the case, I'll be hoping that for my current session, whatever teaser I gave for my current session, I do get a lot of replies from you people. So it is it enthralls me to receive replies from you guys. So do respond, guys. All right, now let's come to the question for this particular session. Let's have a look at the question quickly. So guys, this is the question. This is not the complete question. As of now, what you can do, you can pause this video, take the snapshot, and then I'll show you the remainder of the question. You can again pause the video, take the snapshot. Then by keeping the video paused, you can attempt this question, give it ample amount of time, ample amount of thought, try to find the correct answers. And if you are ready with your answers, then you can unpause the video now and let's see what we are going to do in this question. Okay, so let me go back and let me read the question here. So these are three blocks. One has got a mass of capital M and these two blocks have got a mass of small m and small m. We have to consider this point as origin, this point is L. All right, and this A comes with the velocity V naught, strikes B. The collision is to be considered elastic. Okay, head-on collision, and we have to consider elastic collision, and we have been given gamma as the ratio of masses, and we have to express the velocity of A, B, and C just after the collision. So let me first talk about the theory points that we will need to finish this question. Let me first mention those theory points. So one is we are going to need the collision theory. Okay, the theory of collision, which basically means that you should be good with conservation of momentum. You should be good with coefficient of restitution thing. Okay, some students learn the expression of velocity just after a collision, which is good also because it increases your speed. Even if you haven't learned that, even if you write the equations from the basics and then solve those equations, you will still get the correct answer. So collision theory is something that you need. And the second thing that is imperative that you should know to solve this question is that let's say we have a smooth floor on which we have a block of some mass, let's say m1, which is connected with a light and like ideal spring, a light spring with another block. Okay, so in this case, if you disturb this system in whichever manner, like you could have pulled the two blocks apart and then you could have released them, you could have simply pulled one block or given an impulse to one of the block or an impulse to both of the blocks. So in any manner, if you disturb the system, then the consequence would be that the center of mass starts traveling with a constant velocity. I'm assuming like we are not exerting a continuous force on the system. We have just disturbed the system and left it itself. So the center of mass may be found moving with some velocity which is constant, and the two blocks may be the two blocks will oscillate. Their two blocks will oscillate about the natural length of this spring. Okay, so if someone is sitting in the center of mass frame, that person will simply see the two blocks oscillating like this. Yes, both the blocks will stop together at their outer extremes. They will again stop together at their inner extremes and they will oscillate. This statement also means that it is bound, it is compulsory that the two blocks will be oscillating with the same angular frequency. All right. And that angular frequency would be root of k by reduced mass. Now, what is reduced mass? Reduced mass is product of masses divided by sum of masses. So that means that such a system oscillates with a frequency of k upon m1, m2, and then in the numerator we will have m1 plus m2. In case if masses are equal, then this reduces to m by 2. This happens when m1 is equals to m2 and let's express it as m. Okay, so in that case, omega would become root of 2k by m. So these are the two main points of theory that we will need in this question. Let's apply them. Okay, so the first point was that A block collided with B. Okay, so just before collision, A was traveling with a point with a velocity v. Just after collision, let's say A is traveling with the speed of VA, B is traveling with the speed of VB, and C. Well, A, B, and C, they were connected with to each other with spring, and spring is incapable of exerting impulsive forces. So this means that right after the collision, the velocity of C will still be whatever it was just before the collision. In this case, it was 0. So it means just after the collision, the velocity of C will still be 0. So we can comment on this part just based on concepts. Okay, now to find out V and VB, it's pretty simple. We are going to write momentum conservation, which would become mv naught equal to mva plus small m into vb. So momentum conservation, and the next one is the coefficient of restitution. Since we have been given that the collision was elastic, so we can write that the velocity of separation, which would be vb minus va, will be equal to the velocity of approach, which is v dot. So these are two equations. We have two unknowns. We'll solve these equations, we'll get the answer. And solving them also is not a very big thing. What you can do, you can divide this equation with m. So we will have v naught is equals to va plus small m by capital M, which is gamma into VB. Okay, so I have modified equation number 1 in this manner. Now, if I add these two, VA gets cancelled and we will get 1 plus gamma into VB is equals to 2V naught, which means that we have obtained the value of VB as 2V naught upon 1 plus gamma. And at the same time, we can now write the value of VA also. How do we write that? You can just substitute the value of VB in any of the one of the equation. When you do that, you are going to get 1 minus gamma upon 1 plus gamma into V naught. So I think the first part of our question is done. We have obtained the value of velocity of A, B and C. So this is what was asked in the first part. So this we have found, this we have found, this we have found. Okay. And after finding this, I think here we should also write few other things. For example, after collision, what is the speed of center of mass of B and C, only? So C is not moving with any velocity, right? Just after the collision, B is moving with this velocity. Since their masses are equal, I can simply write VB plus VC by 2. So this would mean V naught upon 1 plus gamma. So the center of mass would be moving with this velocity. All right. With this, let's move to the next part of the question. The next part says that draw the FBD of B and C and write down equation of motion. All right, so let's draw the FBD of B and C. So FBD of B would be somewhat like this, like there would be a force from the surface. Let's call it as normal on B. Then there would be weight of B. So these are the two forces, and apart from that, there would be a spring force. Okay. In this situation, it feels that just after the collision, the spring will begin to get compressed. Okay. So assuming that the spring is compressed, let me exert a force in this direction, and this force will be equal to K into X. What is X here? X is the compression. Now, to understand how to write X, let's focus on one thing. B was at origin, C was at X equals to L. After collision, B will travel more. We expect C to travel less, which basically means that displacement of B or coordinate of B, okay, and this would be the coordinate of C. Earlier, the difference between XC and XB was L, but later on we expect that difference to decrease by some amount, and that decrement would be the compression in the spring. So what I'm trying to suggest here is that XC minus XB was L initially, but after collision it will begin to decrease. So if it decreases by some amount, then that amount is the compression in spring. So X is what? X is L plus XB minus XC is what X is. So this is now we can replace here. So K into L plus XB minus XC. All right. So this is the FBD of B, and if we want to write the equation considering this as the positive direction, I would write minus KX is equals to M into D square XB by DT square. So this would become the equation of motion for B. In a very similar manner, we can draw the FBD of C. I hope you can now imagine what we are going to do when we are drawing FBD of C. So in FBD of C, again we will have a normal force, mg force, and a spring force given by kx. Okay, and for this C, we are going to write k into x. K into x is equals to m into second derivative of xc with respect to time. So that would complete the second part of our question, which is draw the free body diagram and write the equations of motion, right? The question only asks us to write the equation of motion, so we have done that. Okay, now comes the third part of the question, the C part of the question, in which we have to write down the coordinates of B and C with passage of time. So let's see how we are going to do that. Okay, so for that, let me draw a straight line. Let's consider this as straight. Doesn't look like much of a straight line, but yeah, let's manage with this for now. So x equals to 0, and the block C was here. This was x equals to L. Okay, and the center of mass was somewhere here. it will always be at the midpoint of BC or B and C, like midway between B and C. So in ground frame, what happened? This B was traveling with the speed of, let's say, VB, okay, and C was at rest, okay, which means that center of mass would be traveling with the speed of VB by 2 at the initial instant, okay. So this means that center of mass was traveling with the speed of V naught upon 1 plus gamma, because we obtained VB as 2 V naught upon 1 plus gamma. So VCM would be V naught upon 1 plus gamma, half of VB. So the center of mass is moving with the constant speed. Now, if I start looking at the situation from center of mass frame, okay, from center of mass frame, if I consider myself to be sitting at the center of mass, then the center of mass appears to be at rest to me. The velocity of B at the initial instant appears to be VB minus VCM, which is like again VB by 2 only, and the velocity of C appears to me as 0 minus Vc, which means in this direction I see it to be moving with the speed of this. So this is what I see from the center of mass frame. And now these two blocks start oscillating. These two blocks starts oscillating like this, and this. Of course, all these oscillation happen in the same straight line. I've drawn in this manner just to highlight that this block will be first seen moving towards right, and C will be first seen moving towards left, and then go back, and then come, and then go back, and so on. So this is the manner in which C will appear to be oscillating and B will appear to be oscillating in center of mass frame. So again, I'm going to rely on the same technique. I have to write down the displacement of B in the ground frame. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write down the position of B as seen from center of mass plus the position coordinate of center of mass. Okay, so this is my way of writing would be, so B as seen from center of mass. So if I consider center of mass as origin, so minus L by 2 will take me to this position, and from here B started oscillating, moving rightwards first. Okay, so and at this instant B had this much speed. Now this is the position of equilibrium for B. B will oscillate about this position. So if the speed is Vb by 2, which is equals to V naught 1 plus gamma, then this must also be the maximum speed that I'm going to observe in block B when I look at B from center of mass frame. And we know that this speed should be equal to amplitude times omega. So I'm now in a position to write the amplitude of B that will appear to me when I'm looking at it from center of mass frame. So it would be V naught upon 1 plus gamma into 1 upon omega. All right, so now I'm writing it here, plus A sine omega t. Why have I chosen sine? Because when I put t equal to 0, I should get this term as 0. Why have I chosen sine omega t and not sine omega t plus pi? Okay, because the derivative of this, okay, the derivative of this at t equal to 0 should have a positive value, because the velocity of B was in positive direction at t equal to 0. Therefore, I have written this. So this is the position of B as seen from center of mass frame. Now I will add the position vector of center of mass here. So that would be L by 2 plus VCM into T. So this is position vector of center of mass at time t, and this is position of B as seen from center of mass. So the sum of these two will become the position vector of C, or the position coordinate of B of B in the ground frame. So this 2 gets cancelled, and we end up writing V naught upon 1 plus gamma into T plus A. A is how much? It's V naught upon 1 plus gamma, and then 1 upon omega would be root of uh, m by 2k, I suppose. Okay, and then sine omega t. Okay, due to lack of space, I'm writing omega t only. So this is how we are going to write xb. In a very, very similar manner, we can also write xc. So let me try to write that here. Xc, again I will rely on the same approach. From center of mass frame, where does c appears at time t? So it appears at plus L by 2 towards right of center of mass, but its initial velocity was towards left. So I can say I should write as plus a sine omega t plus pi, or you could have simply written as L by 2 minus a sine omega t. All right, so this is not complete yet. This is the position of C when seen from center of mass plus the position of center of mass when seen from ground. So this part will still be added. So L by 2 plus, I'm simply writing VCM into T here because of lack of space. And I'm writing the complete expression here. It's L by 2 plus V naught upon 1 plus gamma into T. So these two L by 2 will get added up, and now we are in a position to answer the remainder question also. So if I go back, so XB is written as alpha T plus beta. So from here what I can say, beta is representing the amplitude, which I remember was 1 plus gamma into 1 upon omega. So 1 upon omega would be uh, m upon 2k. All right, and then alpha was coefficient of t. I think it was v naught upon 1 plus gamma only. Let's go and check. Yeah. So this part is okay, and as far as omega is concerned, it's 2k by m. So we have written down these three also. So guys, I hope you like the solution. I hope you were able to understand it. If not, then please go back and watch the video again. Maybe play it at a lesser speed if you found that you were not able to grasp what I explained. Play it at a lesser speed, pause the video repeatedly and try to understand whatever I have done. Okay, so we are not done yet. D part is still there. Now, D part says that obtain the condition on gamma such that block A will collide with block B again at some time. So guys, we want A to collide with B. Okay, now A and B were together at the same location because they suffered collision. So they were at the same location at t equal to 0. And if they have to collide again at some point in future, at some time in future, then it would mean that they have to be at the same location again. So they were at same location at t equal to 0. They had to be at the same location at some point in future. So they must have the same displacement, or you can simply say that we have the velocity of A, we have the position coordinate of B, we have the velocity of A, hence we can write the position coordinate of A also. So just equate the two coordinates, the coordinate of A and the coordinate of B, equate them and see whatever equation you get. To have a real solution of that equation, what is the range in which gamma should belong? So that should give you the answer for part D. Now, why am I telling you this instead of solving? One, I think this is within your grasp. You all can do this on your own. It's only mathematical. Like whatever physics was involved in this question, we have already covered that. So it's pretty mathematical. I'm expecting you guys to give me the correct answer. And at the same time, I had to leave some teaser for you, right? So this is, some extra part of teaser. The teaser question is coming up right away. So this would be the teaser for this particular session. This is the complete question, guys, on this particular slide only. No further parts to it. So you can just have a look at this question, pause the video, take a snapshot, attempt this question, and send us the solution on this email ID. If we like your solution, we will reach out to you and we will see how we can help you. This includes one-to-one classes, one-to-few classes, like one teacher with 2 or 3 students, or one teacher with 1 student, depending upon what the student deserves. So we provide some kind of services, and largely we don't charge anything for it. So if you want to study from us, from our team, I hope you have heard about Eclave. So if not, try to find out few things about Eclave. If you have someone in your circle, your friends, your relative who have studied from Eclave, go and ask them what it is and what do they get, what kind of commitment, teacher commitment they get. So you'll come to know about our team, how our team works, and I'm pretty sure that you would want to join us, and we would be delighted to have you on board. All right, guys. So send us the solution on this email ID, and I will check the solution. My team will check the solution. We will check the solution, and we will revert back to you depending upon what you have said. Alright, guys, with that, I will bid farewell for today. I'll see you next week with the next session. Till then, take care, guys. Bye bye.